Hi everyone and welcome back to the Southerners Northern Garden. I'm Matthew. If you're new to my channel, I garden in Southwest Ohio, Zone 6, and I have a small 1/3 acre lot in a subdivision, and I've been working on expanding the garden since we purchased the home about 3.5 to 4 years ago. And today I'm going to be discussing two varieties of roses that I'm going to be adding to the moon gate beside me here, which you'll see a picture of, and an arbor on a fence that we had installed last fall. And so I looked very diligently online for different types of roses. I initially started out looking for thornless roses since these were going to be going over arbors and this moon gate, but I didn't find one that I just fell in love with. I don't like red roses to begin with, and regular just solid pink roses are not my favorite. I think there's one called 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 that is a beautiful thornless climbing rose, but I just wasn't interested in pink for this area. I chose a yellow rose to go on the moon gate because behind me here, which you'll see in a moment if you're new to my channel, I have a bed of oh so easy double pink roses already, and so I didn't want to repeat pink on the arbor. I don't have any yellow in this location. And so I really love yellow roses. Yellow roses are some of my favorite. They were also some of my grandmother's favorite. So the rose I've chose to go on the arbor is Teasing, Georgia. It is a very southern name plant, and this is the Southerners Northern Garden. I'm originally from Alabama, so I like adding varieties of plants to my garden that are named after southern states or southern themes. And so these roses came from 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 𝗦𝘂𝗯𝘀𝗰𝗿𝗄. I purchased this in December and just got it in a couple days ago. And they are honestly some of the healthiest roses that I've received. They had way more growth on them than I expected from a 1-gallon pot. So kudos to 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 for growing some wonderful roses. These are also own root roses, which means they were not grafted. They were grown on their own roots through stem cuttings. And so if I have any die-off over winter, which hopefully these won't have any issues, they're hardy to my zone. I try to plant plants that are at least hardy to my zone, if not 1 or 2 zones below me, to prevent issues with die-off. But in the event they do, they will come back as the same variety roses that I purchased instead of the grafted rootstock. And so Teasing, Georgia is the variety that's going to go on the moon gate, and it is a beautiful yellow rose I will put on the screen. I have a couple other yellows in my garden, including the Poet's Wife. And Charles Darwin is a little yellow, but the Poet's Wife is probably my favorite yellow rose in the garden right now. So Teasing, Georgia is a David Alston rose, and previously I've ordered lots of David Alston roses directly from David Alston's website online. But out of my 3 orders I believe I've ordered from them, I've had 2 different roses come the wrong variety, and so I haven't ordered any more bare roots from David Alston, and I'm sticking with these own root roses for now. Not to say that mistakes don't happen, I just tend to have a high prevalence of receiving the wrong plants, and so since I've had that happen several times, I decided to purchase from Heirloom Roses. I've watched several of their YouTube videos and saw their roses in their videos, and they are really healthy, really great roses. And so the second rose that I'm going to be putting on my arbor out front or to the side of the house on the fence is the Impressionist. And if you've been watching my channel, you know I love orange, which is one of my favorite colors. I also love yellows and like that coral color that comes kind of as a cross between orange and yellow. And the Impressionist is an heirloom rose only variety from my understanding. They bred it in-house. It is a cross. Its parents are Graham, Thomas, and Distant Drums. And Distant Drums I do not have in my garden, but if I was looking for another shrub rose to add to my garden, it might be its parent Distant Drums, because this rose kind of cycles through numerous colors, or has numerous colors on the petals: yellows, pinks, corals, oranges, and it is intended to look like an Impressionist painting, and it really stole my heart last year when I was looking for roses to add to my arbor online. And so both varieties of these roses, Teasing, Georgia, and the Impressionist are climbing roses, which means they're going to get pretty large, pretty tall, and these will be the first climbing roses I'm adding to my garden. It's a little early to be planting stuff with this delicate material, and these probably came from greenhouses, but I have checked the weather and we're not supposed to get necessarily a freeze over the next coming week, and they're still short enough that if the weather was going to dip below freezing, I could come out and throw a 5-gallon bucket on all 4 of them. On top of them anyway. And so I'm going to go ahead and get these planted so they can get acclimated to the soil and acclimated to being in my garden before the heat of the summer kicks in. And so I'm going to be planting a lot of stuff over the coming month, perennials and shrubs, just to get those things settled in. And so we're just going to get started. I'm going to plant the Teasing Georgia ones first right here on the moon gate. And I also got planted the tree that I picked up in my plant haul video from 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 today, and so I'm going to show you what that looks like as well. So let's get started. This is the evening light snowbell, and I just think it looks really great in this area and adds a lot of upward interest, which it was missing with that small red bud. I did pot up the red bud just in case there was any signs of life, even though I haven't seen any, and so I'm going to be saving that, and if it shows any signs of life or budding out, I will plant it elsewhere in the garden, but I don't think it will. So I am going to be using my DeWalt drill and my power planter today to plant this rose. It just makes it a little easier on my back and my hands digging in this clay soil. And I'm not going to plant it terribly close, like underneath here. I am going to plant it so that it is right underneath this bar here, so we can immediately start training it upwards. All right, we got a really nice hole here for this rose. And dig out some of this soil around here, and we'll check out the root ball of this rose. I haven't looked at it yet. It's really lots of thorns, but this is a really, really healthy root ball you can see here. Try not to step on any of these other little roses I have down here. So you want to be generous with your starter fertilizer, like use common sense obviously, and don't use too much, because at one point it's not helping any longer, but be generous this time of year. Biotone helps get the roots started really nicely on transitioning plants if you're transplanting them or planting new plants. So it's got mycorrhiza, beneficial fungi, that kind of attaches itself to the root system and helps the plants grow a stronger root system, and also absorb more water or bring water to the root system. So I plant stuff a little high in my garden, not terribly high, but I do have that clay soil, so I don't want it rotting, but that's perfect. And then when it starts growing, we'll train it up this moon gate across into the other side. So out of these 2 Impressionist roses, one is a little taller than the other, only by a few inches. And so I'm going to put the biggest one on that side because it needs to combat the growth of the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 in this early spring. And to the extent it can get a little head start growing, that will be better before the 𝗟𝗟𝗲𝗄 leaves out and blocks some of that sunlight. So these roses are going to look really beautiful on this iron-ish, it's aluminum arbor, but it's very iron looking with this decorative inlay here, which I really love. And so it's going to grow up and then over and look really beautiful, I think. I also have a beautiful clematis coming in a few weeks, and I think I'm going to underplant this rose with the clematis so it will look and intermingle really well in this space on the fence line. I think we have a really large rock under here, so I'm going to go get the shovel and see if I can dig that out. So I have a question for all of you gardeners. Is it just me, or is it always the last thing you've got to do in your project that always causes an issue? It seems like every time I'm planting a series of things, the last one that I need to plant, there's always some underlying issue that takes a little longer. But I have really large rocks on my property, and sometimes I hit them. And so hopefully I can be gentle around this 𝗟𝗂𝗲 and figure out what it is. Yeah, there it is. Pretty big rock here. So now we can get finished. And that's it, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I have one more rose to plant, and it is coming in the next several weeks from Great Garden Plants. I ordered it a couple weeks ago. I'd been waiting for it to be released. It is a new variety by Proven Winners called Rise Up Lilac Days. And so Proven Winners has several like landscape type roses, or the drift roses as a lot of people know them by. And they have a rose called At Last that I've had in my garden for about 3 years now that is a beautiful orange rose. They released a whole 2 new lines of roses this year. One called Reminiscent, which are some beautiful, there's like a white, a coral, and I think there's a pink and maybe some other colors. Really beautiful, you should check those out. But they also released a line called Rise Up, which is their first foray into climbing roses. And so they're not like really extensive tall climbers. They're kind of like shrubby climbers, and so they could be used and trained as a climber. But Rise Up Lilac Days, I don't have any purple colored roses in my garden, and it's just the palest purple lilac color that I'm actually going to be adding along the fence line in the perennial bed that I showed you and that I'll be designing later this season over the next month. And so I'm really excited for that one to come in. And it should be 2 more weeks maybe before I'll get that one, and it will be, I'm sure, very small. It's going to be a 4-inch container probably from Proven Winners and Great Garden Plants, but I will go ahead and stick that out here after it acclimates to outside, because our weather is starting to warm up starting next week. We still are not past our last frost date, but to the extent that you can get shrubs and perennials in the ground, now's a good time to do so, because they will acclimate best and survive through summer best. Do not, if you are around here, be putting annuals out. You will regret it, because we are nowhere near our last frost date, and we're bound to get some late frost around here. So thank you guys for joining me, and remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.